I think it's something as a mother or as a father, like we want to see is just that relationship and like them being their best friend, because friends are going to come and go. They're going to come with seasons, but like family is family.
Are you an RV person or are you just RV life curious? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I've interviewed over 50 of my fellow full-time RV women over the past year. These women are not just managing to travel full-time with their spouse, and often with young kids, they're also running a business or a nonprofit as well. These RV queens live a counterculture lifestyle while also pursuing their passion. They're living their dream both personally and professionally. This summer, I'm highlighting 8 of the most popular episodes of the podcast so far. And as a bonus, at the end of the episode, you'll get to hear an update on how the guest's life has changed over the past year. I hope you enjoy the episode and are inspired to keep pursuing your dreams as well. Ladies, I've been searching for a business coach to have on the podcast who knows how to explain the importance of sales in a relatable, interesting way. I have finally found the one. Not only is Dora Rankin a podcast guest, she's also the author of a book called The Heart Sell, which is a guide for women entrepreneurs who want financial freedom. I've read the book and am obsessed with it. If you're looking for a soulful yet strategic way to build your business, head to dorarankin.com. and get the Heart Sell book today. All right, friends, let's get real for a sec. Cleaning every part of your RV, including the nasty bits, is a big part of RV life. We use wastewater products for our camper from Unique Camping and Marine that are the best. They have a 2-in-1 toilet cleaner and black tank treatment called Flush It. That is freaking brilliant. Find these and many other useful RV products at uniquecampingmarine.com and use code RVQueens for 15% off your order. Hello, friends and fellow RV queens. This is your host, Kate White, coming at you yet another time from Omaha, Nebraska, where we are mooch talking in the driveway of my in-laws. And it's been great. Today, you are going to hear me geek out big time about our guest. And I think I literally told her I'm obsessed with her like 5 times, which I'm now embarrassed by. Her name is Brooke Happe. Her initials literally spell be happy. And yes, she started the cutest little brand of hats based off of her name. And I'm just like, all about what she's into. Also, like, she's one of these people that started in the medical field, you know? She got her doctorate in physical therapy and was like the head of rehab at this hospital before she made a giant life change, became a stay-at-home mom, started a hat business, and then all of a sudden decided with her husband, you know, of course, family decision, to start traveling full-time in an RV after they had just moved into their dream house a year or 2 prior. I mean, her story is so inspirational. It's one of those that's like, just this woman is a superhero. I'm not kidding. Okay, I'm clearly obsessed. I'm a little embarrassed by how much I'm nerding out about this. I think you'll see why, okay? I clearly love this conversation. I think you will too. Let's get into it already. Hello, Brooke Happe, and welcome to the RV Queens podcast. How are you today?
Good.
Good. And where are you coming from in the United States?
We're in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful there. Have you visited there several times, or is this your first time there?
This is our second time. We were here around the same time last year.
Okay, awesome. So a favorite spot maybe that you return to like it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I am obsessed with your brand, and I'm obsessed with the fact that your name, like this whole thing, it's like literally says be happy. It's like it was a gift from God that was just like, you need to start a brand in the world to make it a better place. And I just think the whole thing's so cool, and I'm super excited to dig into your story today. Where I want to start though is actually back when you were a physical therapist, you know, career focused, you had a couple kids and one on the way, and then you decided to make a huge life change about 10 years ago. Tell me how it felt to like all of a sudden drop a career and solely focus on being full-time mom?
Yeah, it was definitely a transition. I had worked my way up as a doctor of physical therapy to kind of be a director of rehab. And I felt like everything was going the way that I wanted it to and what I have dreamt of, professionally. But my heart was just calling me to be home with our kiddos. My husband traveled during the week for work. And so I'd go to work and then we'd pick up the kids. And I just felt like I was losing out on all of this precious time with the kids. And so I thought, I worked hard to get to this point, and I know I can do that again if I step away. And so I knew that I would never get the time back with my kiddos, but I would always have time to rebuild my career or go back to it. So I said, why not? I really believe that you need to follow your heart and follow your gut. And even if you follow through with what you think is correct and it doesn't work out the way that you did, I don't see that as a failure. I feel like not trying and not following your heart is more of a failure than it's something not working out the way that we wanted it to. So I resigned and started to be a stay-at-home mom at that time, I was pregnant with my third. So 3 under 4 years old.
Yeah. I mean, talk about different kinds of stresses. I'm sure as the director, you said it was director of rehab, right? I'm sure that that level of position had a lot of stress that came with it, but then also being at home with 3 tiny kids. I only have 2 kids. I'm can totally see different stress management going on, but still probably same level of stress.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I had a similar experience where, I built a career for 10 years. I was the breadwinner in our family. And then during COVID, I quit my good paying job in technology because it's I just needed to slow down and also to do my own, start my own business and just be with my kids. They were so young and they still are young. And I have not regretted that ever. And I hope I don't have to go back to being an employee someday, but if I need to, I always have it to fall back on.
Right,
so
right.
You had 3 little kids and you started crocheting. Something that I saw on your website said you started crocheting to keep your hands strong. Why was that important?
Yeah, so as a doctor of physical therapy, I use my hands a lot for manual therapy. And so a lot of the rehab and the techniques that we were doing, manipulation and stuff was with my hands. And so I have built up the strength in my hands. And I felt once the kids are older, I'll just go back to my career. And so I don't want to lose what I had gained physically as a professional. And so I just went to the yarn store, and as a lifelong learner, I was I'm going to teach myself to crochet. It'll keep me busy at night when the kids are sleeping and my husband's traveling. And I'll just make some hats for the kids at the hospital, and it'll be something that's going to keep me busy, as if I wasn't looking back busy enough, right? But
right.
A different kind of busy.
It's a relaxing kind of busy.
Right. Just takes your mind away. Just drift off.
Can you tell me, what does your husband do that he travels so much?
He has worked 17 plus years kind of in the agricultural business realm of things. So he's always worked remotely. As long as he's near an airport, he can fly from wherever, see his team, see customers. And then when he's not traveling, he can work from wherever. So that was kind of what, another logistical aspect of kind of what made us be able to travel full time.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. So in your family dynamic, you were already used to everyone being home together all the time because he was working remotely, and then you quit your job to be with the kids and then started a crochet business. So before RVing, you are already used to that dynamic.
When we sold, everything was in 2nd grade. So I had 1 that was, away at school, and then 2 that were still doing the preschool thing. So I got, a couple hours in the morning alone.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, being home, kind of head of household type thing, that was something that hadn't changed, once we started traveling.
And were you guys familiar with RV stuff before you decided to start traveling? Or was it a full immersion learning?
We were weekend campers for 2 seasons. So we lived in Iowa. So it's a very short season, basically Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we did 2, summers of weekend camping. But that was kind of the extent.
So you had some familiarity with RV stuff, which is nice before you hit the road. Tell me the genesis of like why you decided to make this huge life change and travel full time.
Yeah. In 2018, our middle kiddo, he was 4 years old and he had a virus that went like straight to his lungs, and he was in the PICU at the Children's Hospital for 9 days. And so he was isolated to his room, and, 4-year-old, like stuck in a room for 9 days. There's boredom and things like that. He had to have like breathing treatments, and he was connected, to tubes and lines. And the Child Life Services would always kind of come in and, do, different things with him and play and things like that. And we just saw a lot of slow time together, in that hospital room. And it was just not only the health scare, but just the time together in a very scary time was like, we are living in too fast of a, paced life. We're in this autopilot. We need, to change something. And so we had followed, Nate and Marissa, Corey and Jesse, and just, we had known about the full-time travel lifestyle. So that was kind of like a little light bulb in our head. Like, we need, this is a scary moment. We need to learn from it. And why not just try it?
I love that you decided to just try it, but like surely there were some other voices going on. Like, were your parents and your family just like totally fine? Because you're from a town in Iowa, right? Like, was this a normal thing that was going on around in your community?
No, and we sold everything in 2019, so people kind of thought like, okay, well, we pulled them out of private school, like we had our dream home. I mean, we had only been in our home for a year and a half, that we built. And so people were like, what are you doing? And so it was a bit out of I'm quite type A. So, like our structured routine. My parents were, had questions, but, I think that they obviously like support anything that we do. And it has honestly given us more time with them, quality time spent together, because we lived about 3 hours away. And so being from the Midwest, if you plan a weekend in November and it snows or something like that, you may not see them for a couple months because it's just the weather is so unpredictable. So we just felt like because we weren't in the same town, it was hard. We'd leave on Friday after the kids were out of school. We'd have this rushed weekend and get back on Sunday, and it was quality time, but it was just different. So they were supportive and they had questions, but, like I said, we just wanted to follow our hearts, and they understood that and the importance of family.
How old was your baby when you guys hit the road?
She had just turned 3.
A little, can walk and like do some things on her own. Yeah.
Yeah. Our first day of full-time travel, she actually, we had sold our home, but we were like still RVing in the town that we sold everything from, and she tripped out of the camper and broke her arm in 2 spots. Like literally we woke up the first night and we're like, yes, it worked out. She goes to go down the stairs and like, if like a dinner fork, what a dinner fork looks like, that's what her arm looked like. And I was like, I really hope this isn't the start of like our adventure.
No. Dude, and you have a medical background too, so I'm sure your like fear brain is just like on high alert.
Yeah. Yep.
My husband was an RN for 10 years, actually pediatric RN. So when you told that story about child life specialist, I was like, oh yeah, I'm familiar. Anyways, so whenever my daughter has broken her arm twice, and it's like the same thing, like I'm like, when it first happens, you're kind of like, okay, is this as bad as we think it's going to be? Or is it like, kind of like trying to gauge, is this like an emergency room thing or what kind of situation? And my husband's always just like, I need to call my friends, because he can't think clearly. Like as a dad, he's like knows like the worst case medical situation that could be. So he needs like another voice to be like calming him down. So I can't imagine with a 3-year-old. Whew, that was a bit freaky.
Yeah.
Did she have to have a little cast?
She did. She had like this hot pink cast. And yeah, it was so cute. But and they're so resilient. Once they reset it, it looked, great. And yeah, she had a little bit of, kicking off summer with no swimming and stuff like that, but she's healthy, and we haven't had any issue. So,
yeah,
so.
knock on wood, big time. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So I kind of went on a sidebar because I was just curious about like you guys getting into RV life. I really do want to talk about your business and kind of like your vision behind that. So you started crocheting to keep your hands strong, as like to keep up with your physical therapy strength, right? And you had moms start asking where you got these beanies, and it turned into a business. That was like 7 years ago, right? About. And at this point, like you have a really awesome website, you got a blog, you're a content creator, and there's a lot of soul behind the work that you do. I mean, just like the name alone, I'm just like obsessed with. The fact that it's your initials, I just love it so much. And you give back, like you have a give back program. You have a strong teaching component to a lot of the content you create. So I'm curious to hear, like, is this the brand that you envisioned from the start, or has it been kind of an evolution over time?
It has certainly evolved. I started on social media just posting hats, and I should like scroll back all the way and see if I still have just like flat lays of hats. But yeah, so that was kind of the whole goal for social media, was just promoting the hats. And then when we sold everything in 2019, people were like, well, how are you going to run a physical product-based business from a tiny space? And that was kind of a lot of people are digital nomads and they don't have, something tangible that they have to ship. And so people started asking about it. And so like I said, I'm a lifelong learner. I just love helping people. And so I just kind of started to share, tips and tricks and just how the logistics of running a business from the road. And then it's just kind of evolved into trying to encourage people to really live their life. I'm a firm believer in that things happen for a reason and for a season. And I think a lot of times we feel like we are in this autopilot. We're not focusing on what the reason is for this particular season. I struggled a long time with the fact that I went to school for 8+ whatever years to get this degree, and then I wasn't using it. I felt like I was almost failing. But then I realized that I was failing myself by not following something that just wasn't a passion of mine anymore. And so I think a lot of times we just need to reevaluate like our life. And so, yes, the products are still like important and, it's a growing business, but I feel like I can help others a little bit more by encouraging them to, maybe dig deep a little bit into their life and what can they change, or, are they happy with what they're surrounding themselves with?
Oh, I love that. I had the same experience where, I mean, like I mentioned before, I had dedicated 10 years of my life to this career. And yeah, same thing, like still paying off student loan debts at the time. And there's a point where it's like, you have to switch your like, I don't know, logic brain or whatever side of your brain that says you've invested so much time and money into this, like you have to stick with it. And then there's like this more soulful, deeper side, like you alluded to, that's like, well, I learned so many lessons along the way, and that's actually the true value behind this career that I've just built, and like
Yes.
all the years of being a professional and in a professional environment and learning to work with different personalities and, all that kind of thing. It's that value that was like an investment that I will like use for the rest of my life. It wasn't wasted time. It's not wasted money. There's so much learning that happened there. So I love that you're like encouraging people to kind of look at their own life. Like, if you're not happy, it's not a loss. It's not like you just wasted a bunch of time and money. There's always things that, you can pull from that time and take.
Yes, absolutely.
Just logistically, you mentioned having a product-based business and moving into an RV. I'm super curious about this too. What is going on with the storage? Like, do you have an offsite warehouse, or are you just like super organized and like minimalist with your personal stuff so you have space for your products? Or how does this work?
Yes. It took some time to like figure out going from a office or, in our home to like a tiny space. So it's more of a logistical, like planning, knowing these are the hats that are going to release, at this time, these are the hats that are going to release at that time. And so I have a team of 12 that helps me create and make now. And so, yeah, it's just kind of like a shipping logistics of these are when these hats need to be done, and they'll come to me, we release them, and then it's like this evolving cycle. My under storage of the bed, like the master bed lifts up and there's storage underneath. That's where kind of the raw materials go. And a lot of people are like, well, that's not much space, but it's honestly helped my business because I use what I have. I'm very intentional with the raw materials that I'm purchasing. I'm not just buying materials to buy materials because I have an open space in my office. When we were in our home, I had this cubby full of yarn, and it's like, oh, that yellow yarn's getting low. I should buy more and put it in there. But now I'm just using exactly, what we have and planning logistically for it. So it's really helped, honestly, I think helped my business and helped me reflect on, we really need very little to run a successful business. And I'm in the driver's seat to make this business fit for this season of life. I've kind of reeled back a bit, and because it was growing more than what I was enjoying for, the season of life. And so it's okay to kind of put the brakes on and say, this is not, bringing me as much joy as what I wanted it to. So yeah, you kind of just have to really focus on including things in your life that really honestly make you happy, because at the end of the day, when you want to look, you're never going to look back and be like, I wish I would have worked more, or,
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that I think a lot of people need to reflect on.
Yeah. Did you always have a creative streak and an entrepreneurial side to you? Did you have coaching, and how did you teach yourself all of this?
I think the one thing about physical therapy is that what I really enjoyed about it was that let's say I had 2 patients who tore their ACL. Patient A and patient B, yes, they have the same injury, but their treatments and then what is happening with their body is completely different. And so I think even though it's not creative with regards to colors and, artistic, you really have to think about, how am I going to treat that person, and what worked for them is not going to work for, the other person. So I think it's just the way that my brain kind of worked that I really needed to kind of just cycle through and consider all of the logistics of everything and make it work for each situation. And that's kind of how I've progressed with the brand, going from just hats to now a little bit more lifestyle and content creation and things like that. Is just, figuring out what needs to work and what is working for each season of life.
So you are working, obviously, remotely. You have 3 kids. Your husband is working remotely. Do you have any pets in the mix too?
We have 2 dogs.
Yeah, 2 dogs. Oh my gosh. You have to have a really organized mind. And I know that you're into creating systems and being productive with the time that you have. Will you just give us a glimpse into your life and how you make all these parts and pieces work? Oh yeah, not to mention homeschooling and figuring out education for your kids. So how do you make this work as far as time and logistics for everyone to have what they need?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me and for our family is not being afraid to say no to things, and really knowing what our why is for that season of life. And for us, our seasons may be 5 months. It may be 3 crazy weeks of travel. We really sit down and say, what is our focus for this particular time frame? Because then we can eliminate the things that just aren't going to work, that are maybe going to cause more stress, and make sure we are intentional with including the things that, bring us joy. So this past winter, we didn't move for 5.5 months because our kiddos were playing baseball and doing gymnastics. So I was like, I'm not going to worry about seeing all things and doing all things when we're in certain areas. Our time right now is about community. It's about getting the kids involved. And as far as the business was, it was logistically planning for fall. So yeah, I had to say no to some things, maybe getting together with people or having nights in instead of, being up by the fire pit and things like that. But I think just setting the limits has really helped us to juggle all the different things that are happening. So yeah, I love systems. We time block our days so that we know what to expect. No one likes anything that comes up like unexpected, right? So for us, it's, we know our morning routine, and the afternoons for short periods of time are like my work periods. And so the kids do some quiet activities, books and Legos and things like that. And it's developed over time. And then I theme my days. I know on certain days I only make. On Fridays, I look at all of my financials and numbers. And so that just helps me wake up and say, this is what's getting done. I'm going to do it. And then we have free time. I felt like I had this to-do list when we started traveling, and I'd make a hat, and then I'd have to go to the grocery store, and then I did this, and then I did that, and I never got anything done. And so it's like, I'm going to set these specific days of what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to be crystal clear on what those tasks are. And then when I finish them, and I don't have to continually go about it. So that's kind of what works for us. And I know it sounds probably super structured, and the whole point of the lifestyle is flexibility. But honestly, it gives us so much flexibility because we get our stuff done, and then we have like all afternoon to do whatever.
Right. And you don't have the mental stress of like a never ending to-do list, which
Right.
Me and my husband have been self-employed for years, and we're like still trying to figure out what you're talking about, like creating these systems. I'm like, will you coach me? Anyways, I'm just going to like turn this into a coaching session right now. But yeah, that's so important because it like opens up mental space for you to like be fully present with your kids instead of like constantly thinking about all the stuff you need to do for your business. So props to you, man. That's incredible. And on this note, how do you kind of keep yourself from shiny object syndrome? Because you're a content creator and a business owner, and there's new social media platforms to try out. And like, what if you got on YouTube? And that's just like so many cool things to experiment with. Is that a struggle for you to kind of like rein yourself in? Or are you the type of person that's just focused on what you're doing and you don't have this squirrel syndrome that a lot of entrepreneurs have? I
do like a quarterly roadmap or kind of mindset type thing, and writing down things that worked and things that didn't work. So, usually I give it a good, 3 to 4 months to kind of see if I do start something new, was it worth, was the ROI, as far as my time, did that make sense? Did it not? So yeah, I mean, I like a great challenge. I like new things. But I think a lot of it's just more of like self-reflection and kind of being consistent on not getting in this hamster wheel of like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep doing this and this and this. And then in the end, it doesn't make sense. It's not giving me the return on what my, time and investment was for it. So I think just setting up some downtime, to really reflect on what's working and what's not working, both business and personally, is really, really helpful for us. And we kind of do the same thing with our family. And looking ahead or looking back on the different quarters or seasons of what did we like? What didn't we like? Did we move too fast? Were we in a spot too long? So, I think a lot of it's just like the self-reflection and slowing down enough to kind of think about what's happened and what may happen.
On the note of ROI, are you mostly a consumer-based business, or do you also wholesale your products?
We wholesale also. Yeah. So right now we are preparing for the fall. In February is when our wholesale lineup went out. And so retailers are purchasing and things like that. And then we'll ship them out in August.
I mean, talk about like a whole other thing to learn. How many years into the business did you start like becoming a wholesale product business?
I started Be Happy in 2016. In 2017, 2018, I don't know, Yonkers, the department store Yonkers, Bonton. They started a I think it was locally grown, locally made kind of aspect. And so they brought a lot of different artists or makers from the community and sold in their store. So that was like, I was basically just thrown into the situation. So I learned from the experience. It didn't turn out to be a great experience because ultimately that was a marketing ploy because they were going out of business. So I learned a lot of things from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So they were buying and buying and buying. Yep. And I'm like a peanut, for the brands that also were worked over. Think of some of the brands in those department stores that, the buyers were just buying because they were told to buy, but they didn't know what was happening, in the infrastructure and what was happening behind the scenes. So I learned a lot from that situation.
Oh, yeah, sure. And also like the seasonality of like, you kind of have to start thinking kind of like how the fashion world is. I mean, to me, obviously you're in fashion. But any product-based business, especially if there's a wholesale component, you have to work a season or two ahead, right? And just like getting your brain in that mode, it's a whole switch of like organization and preparation. And then like, man, I'm so impressed with you if you can't tell. I'm like, how are you doing this? It's so amazing. And you're doing it from the road. RV life-wise, you've traveled a lot. I think somewhere I read about 40,000 miles. Is that across the U.S. so far? That's incredible.
Yeah, 27 states.
27! My gosh. Do you guys have a goal of hitting at least like 48?
We want to hit 50 before our oldest is 18. Yeah, he'll be 12 this week. So, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I mean, clock's ticking. Better get on it.
I know.
What are your top 3 spots that come to mind when you reflect back on your travel so far?
So our number 1 bucket list item was the Dry Tortugas down in Florida. And we took a seaplane in there and it was absolutely incredible. Our kids' favorite spot is White Sands in New Mexico. I mean, there's something pretty incredible about like being in the city and then driving up to this, miles and miles of sand dunes. And New Mexico, honestly, surprised us. Like, you don't hear about it much, but it is a really beautiful state. And then we love Montana also. So, when it's nice and warm in the summer and fall, we like Montana also.
Do you find a lot of inspiration for what you create from traveling?
Yeah, definitely. I like to look, basically there's a lot of different fashion and different cultures and things like that as we travel. So I like to look at like color combinations and things like that when we're traveling. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's very specific and a collection almost. And other times it's just spur of the moment. Let's test it and try it and see if it works.
All right. You're organized and you live in an RV. What are your top organization tips, especially for people that are like new, getting into RV life, like myself, not crazy organized? Or people that are thinking about getting in, like living full-time in an RV. What are your go-to tips for newbies?
Honestly, I would say just if you don't use it, get rid of it, especially if it's something very regular. I think there's something very beautiful and simple about just having like things around you that 1, you use, and that are 2, that's functional, and 3, things that like bring you joy and make you feel good. I love small businesses. I love drinking out of a mug that someone either made with their hands or designed, because I know that that's making an impact on their family. So I think a lot of times I just really try to surround myself with things that have meaning and bring me joy and I want to be around. So I feel like if something is stressing me out or a drawer or something, it's like, let's just get rid of it? Have I used it? So I think just really being intentional about how like the items make you feel and if you actually use them. We don't need a whole lot to like actually get by. So that's what I would say.
How do you feel you've changed over the past several years that you've been on the road? Like when you reflect back to your life before and like the monotony that you were like kind of trying to break up and get out of, and that light bulb moment with your kiddo in the hospital to now, how do you feel you as like a person, as a mom, as a wife? What have been your top changes?
For me, I've always just wanted to follow my heart and to kind of go with my gut, not to have any regrets. And so I think that this lifestyle has really just solidified that aspect and that idea and the mindset that things are going to work for a certain season and it's okay to grow out of them. It's okay to step away from it and to start something new. And so I think it's honestly just really made me enjoy the moment that we're in, the season that we're in, and be okay with whatever is next. I mean, I knew when I was in grade school or high school, I wanted to be a doctor of physical therapy. Like that was I'm going to do this, do this. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't always been this like, I wouldn't say I'm like a free spirit or anything like that, but I've always been very structured and goal oriented. And that doesn't mean that I'm not anymore, but I'm just more open to the idea of change and to not be stuck in something that doesn't make me happy and joyful. So yeah, I think it's been great.
Do you feel like you've become a more reflective person since hitting the road, or were you always kind of someone that loved nature and loved, kind of the reflective side of life?
I've always, like I said, been kind of goal oriented and, looking back on or setting goals and then looking back and being like, did I, achieve this? How am I doing, as far as progress? So I think that's probably, I played college soccer. And so that's kind of like the very structured, aspect of kind of my upbringing, an important part of my adult life. So I think it's always been reflective. It's probably changed in the way that it has versus being like, maybe numerically or career oriented as far as hitting those goals. And now it's more of an emotional, how am I feeling type of goals.
Yeah. And I could see, now that you mentioned that you're an athlete, I could see that playing into your story because you have to be able to like accept feedback and accept like, okay, I whatever, I don't like should have scored that goal or something like that, and be like, next time I have to change. And that's such a like strong aspect for you, like a strong characteristic, I guess I should say, of like running a business and then, everything else that you're doing in life, that ability to reflect and like even just have the feedback from your own self of like, okay, this didn't work, this did, let's shift and keep moving. So man, I'm learning. So I'm like taking notes over here, like, okay, be better at
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, of college, because you learn just, it's such a pivotal time in your, in your life, like you're often on your own and so I think like playing soccer in college and then having to be, a student athlete with the goal of like, I knew that school wasn't over after that. I knew I had 4 more years after, undergrad. And so I think that has kind of helped my, quote unquote, juggling or balancing of multiple things in life. And like, this is my focus when I'm on the soccer field. This is my focus when I'm, at school. And so I think that has really honestly helped play into like just the ability to kind of set goals and focus and get things done when it's kind of crazy.
Okay, I have one more question for you, and then I would like you to share where people can connect with you online. So the slogan for this podcast is a podcast about unexpected riches. And I would love for you to share what's been the unexpected richness you have found in RV life.
There's so many, but I think honestly, it's the relationship that our family has gained, specifically my children's relationship, and just seeing their bond and their friendship. I think it's something as a mother or as a father, like we want to see is just that relationship and like them being their best friend, because friends are going to come and go. They're going to come with seasons, but like family is family. And so I think that's been the most rich thing that has come from this travel adventure.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I feel the same way about our kids too. They used to fight a lot more when we had like a really busy life, and now they're they're a lot closer, just kind of as friends, which just makes my heart swell. So good. Okay, where can our listeners connect with you online, Brooke?
Yes, we share our travel adventures and my product-based business at b.e happy HAPPE on social media.
Okay, and your website is it behappy.com?
It's behappydesigns.com.
Behappydesigns.com. Get yourself a beanie or a trucker hat. Do you have can you give us any clues like what's coming up for your next season?
I have a new product coming. Same, obviously, it's a hat, but I've been working about the past 18 to 20 months on a hat that I'm excited about. And then I think it'll kind of complete our brand, but still a couple things that need to happen. So I'm like crossing my fingers, getting close to the deadline, but I'm so excited. So yeah, look for a new hat coming.
Oh my gosh, I'm so curious. What have you been working on for 20 months? It's a cowboy hat. I know it. You don't have to confirm or deny, but when the cowboy hat comes out, I'm going to be like the first person to buy it. Ah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Brooke. I'm so impressed with you and your like soulfulness, and then paired with your organized, productive brain. I'm just super impressed by you. So thank you for spending the time with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Over the past year, we have had some changes in our Be Happy brand. We have purchased a home with land in Texas, and we are now part-time RV travelers. Like I talked about on the podcast, we have always been a family that has followed our hearts and followed our gut, and we were being called to slow down and to cultivate a space that was for a new season of life. And so we purchased land, purchased a home, and we are traveling part-time now in our RV, still being very simple and intentional with our time, with our possessions, what we surround ourselves with, and continuing to homeschool our kiddos with the flexibility of being able to pick up and travel when we want to.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode and for being my favorite part of RV life. If you could please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, that would be awesome. And listen, if you want to have conversations like I had on this episode with your fellow RV women, head to rvqueenspodcast.com/community and choose your RV Queen Circle today. All right, guys, I'll see you next week, or hopefully I will see you on the road. Makes my heart swell. So good.